Hey guys, I'm Steve from Backridge Tough, and today we're going to do a stress test on our folding saws. When you're out in the field, you need to know that your folding saw is going to hold up for you. It's going to do a lot of cuts and it's going to cut really well. So what I want to do today is put our saws through some stress tests, like dropping them on concrete, hitting them with hammers, running them across rocks or steel like a nail in a tree, and see how well they hold up for you, so that way you can be well assured that if you buy one of our folding saws, you know it's going to work for you for a long time. So I have our saws, these two saws here marked, number 1 and number 2, and I'm going to be using these two saws. I want you to see right up front what the 1 and 2 look like, so that way you can ensure that I'm using only these saws for all of our tests. Okay, so for our first stress test, we're going to do saw number 1, and we're just going to drop it a number of different ways right on the cement and see if we get any gouges, marks, anything that breaks. Obviously, the most crucial part is the hinge, so we're going to start by dropping it right on the hinge. And then we're going to drop it blade side or logo side up, and then logo side down, and then we'll drop it on the bottom. All right, so now let's get a good look at it. So here's our saw. You can see if we look at the end, no actual damage on the end, no scratches or anything, no scratches on any of the plastic. On this side, the butt is actually fine, and it's still open and closes fine. So that's really good. That's saw number 1. Okay, so for stress test number 2, we're going to take the same saw, and instead of dropping it just a few times, we're going to drop it 50 times. So I'll put this in time lapse so you don't have to watch this really slow. Okay, so here's our number 1 saw that we just dropped 50 times on the cement. You can see the end has got a small amount of denting from dropping it from 5 feet in the air straight on concrete, but it's all together in one piece. We don't have anything broken. And then if we look at the plastic handle, there's no cracks. We dropped it quite a few times on the bottom. So there's no cracks there. The blade's all intact, handle's all intact, and if we look at our latch, the latch is still fine. The latch is still working great. We can still close it still stays closed. So I'd say that's a pretty successful test for 50 drops on cement. I don't think anybody's really going to do that, but if you did, then you would know that your saw is still going to work. So for stress test number 3, we're going to take our second saw and we're going to make sure that our screw will actually stay in place as you open and close your saw all the time. So your screw is completely adjustable. You can tighten it if you want your saw to open more stiff, or you can loosen it if you want your saw to open up easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to mark where this groove is on the metal, and then we're going to open and close it 50 times and see if that screw actually moves. Okay, so hopefully you can see I have a black mark on the saw that's lined up with the screw. And now we're going to open and close it 50 times and see if that screw actually changes from where its initial position is. Okay, so as you guys can see, the screw may have turned 1/16 of an inch at the most. So other than that, our saw has remained staying just as tight or as loose as you set it the way that you wanted. So I would also call that a successful stress test. Okay, so for our next stress test, we're gonna take saw blade number 1 again, and we're gonna simulate doing a whole bunch of cuts. I just screwed a piece of regular softwood to this piece of firewood. It's basically 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches, so it's kind of like a medium-sized branch. Probably gonna be cutting a lot of those when you're out in the woods. So we're just gonna take our number 1 and we're gonna cut this a bunch of times, and then we'll take a look at the teeth and feel how sharp they are and see how well it holds up. Okay, so here's our number 1 saw. We just made about 10 cuts, and it's kind of hard for you guys to see, but there's no discoloration of the blade. There's no marks on the teeth. The blade is still nice and sharp and pulls at my fingers. I'm sure you can hear that. Still super, super sharp. So let's do it one more time and see if we get any difference. All right, here's our number 1 blade again. And as you can see, still no marks on the blade. Teeth are all still nice and sharp. There's no Mars in them. They're still super tacky to my fingers. Nice and sharp. So that's about 20 cuts with absolutely no change. Okay, so we're gonna do something crazy. We're gonna take a nail and we're gonna put it in the end of the board, and then we're gonna saw on it for like 30 seconds or a minute, and then we're gonna try cutting with it and see how much it affects the blade. There we go. I'm sure you guys can see the nail head right in the end. So here's our number 1 saw again. So now we'll go right on the end here where we know that nail is. There's the nail. All right, I would say that's sufficiently sawing the nail. Now let's go back a little ways where we know the nail's not, and see. So it's definitely not as sharp, but still cut right through. Still cuts through pretty good for ramming on that nail for a good 30 seconds. You know, she's definitely not perfect. You can definitely feel it doesn't have quite as much bite to it. But even after sawing on a nail for 30 seconds, you can still cut wood with it. All right, guys, now we're gonna do something crazy. We got our number 1 saw again that's already beat from dropping it 50 times. And we're gonna smack it with a hammer on the handle, on the latch, on the handle, on the blade, and just see what kind of damage we can do. So let's start with like 10 good whacks and we'll see what happens. There we go, 10 good strikes. So our handle is still fine. There's no cracks, there's no breaks. You can see where the plastic is actually a little bit discolored from the stress of getting hit. We can still open our saw. It still latches. We can still close our saw and it still stays closed. So given all that, our blade looks pretty good. Latch is still good. You know, I don't think anybody's gonna hit their saw with a hammer, but if it's in your backpack, it could be beaten around with some other tools and stuff. So I'd say if it can survive 10 good whacks with a hammer, you're probably fine for whatever you're gonna have in your backpack. Success! Okay, so for the next stress test, we all know that if you don't have a good quality blade, that when you're going through a cut, it can catch on something and flex, and the tip will break off, or you'll get a bend in your blade, and that'll make it so your cuts will either not go straight, or simply it'll just be hard to cut because rather than going straight through the tree, the saw is trying to go around an angle every single time. So I just got a real simple vise screwed to this board, and we're gonna lock it in place. First, we'll start with the tip, and we'll see how far we can flex it and see if it actually bends or if it's gonna break. And then we'll move further down the blade and put some more stress on that and see what happens to our handle and even the plastic. See how much this can actually take. So start with just putting the tip in here, and we'll lock ourselves down so we can't move. There we go. So there, you can tell it's all tight. So we'll just start going. And I think I'm just gonna let it go. So there's obviously no issue there. Let's keep going. That's pretty far. So let's see, we're easily 90 degrees right there. So let's take it out. And let's look. You can see the blade is still perfectly straight. That's quite an angle. So let's put it back in there. So our blades are made of high quality SK5 steel, and they're supposed to be able to take a beating. So actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop for a second. I'm gonna get a pair of safety glasses just in case this thing breaks. You gotta protect your eyes. All right, I feel better. Gotta be safety, have safety first. So let's see, we're just gonna keep going and see what happens. Wow, look at that. I can touch the board. So let's let it go. Let's undo it. Slight bend right where that was. Can you see that? But ever so slight. Just barely an angle for going that far. You're never gonna get caught in a branch and, and bend it. What is that? That's like, this would be 90, this would be 180, so that's probably like 135 degrees or so. That's a massive bend in the blade. All right, so let's go a little bit further. Let's go like halfway now. A little over halfway. I don't know what's gonna happen. The handle, the latch could break, or the plastic could break, or we could get a massive bend in our blade, or the blade could even just break off. I don't know. There's a lot of tension on this. You can see a lot of tension putting this much on this blade. Wow, that's crazy. Look at that. That's almost the same thing. Now I would have to say there's probably a bend in it. Yep, you can see there's a slight bend in it. So just for the heck of it, let's just pretend that happened. And I wonder if I go back this way, if I can get the bend out. Look at that. That's pretty crazy. If you did get a bend, it's not too bad for considering how much I was bending it. And like I said, when you're cutting through a tree way back in here, it's really hard to get any kind of flex in a tree between this spot and this blade. I mean, I can barely bend that at all. Putting it in the vise is obviously an extreme test. So for it to go a full 135 degrees, not snap, and have just the slightest degree of a bend in it, I'd say that's pretty damn good. I bet a lot of cheaper saws, when you went way down like that, the tip would just snap right off. And then that's no good, because that makes it hard for you to get some of your cuts started. So again, we got our number 2. And now that we can see we have that slight flex in it from being extremely bent, I'm just curious how well it actually cuts. So let's give it a try. It literally doesn't seem to affect it. Doesn't seem to affect it at all as far as cutting goes. Just slices right through them. Yeah, nice. So even if you do, you can see, look how little that is actually bent. Even if you do happen to catch your saw in a tree and put an extreme amount of flex on it, which even if you do, I don't think you're gonna bend it, because you're not gonna bend it 135 degrees starting through a limb. You're still gonna be fine cutting whatever you need to cut. Okay, so for our last test, we're gonna test the strength of our hole that you would attach your cord to so you could hang it, and see how strong the handle is. So I'm gonna take a nail, put it in the vise, and I'm gonna see if we can actually bend the nail with the handle. Nail. Like that. And then we'll put our handle over it, and we'll see if we can bend the nail. Look at that. No problem at all bending the nail. And if we want, we can even bend it back. That's pretty good. So that concludes our video. As you guys can see, we put these 2 saws through quite a few different tests, and they held up really well. I mean, to be honest, I had no idea I could bend the saw that far and not have the tip snap. I knew that I had done a bunch of research and done a lot of testing and tried different blades, but I never really tried to bend it that far. And to see that it held up that well gives me even more confidence that I know that if you guys buy a Backridge Tough folding saw, it's gonna be something that's gonna last for you, it's gonna work well, and I think you're gonna be pretty happy with it. So thanks again for watching. If you have any other ideas for doing some stress tests, drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.